Okay, I got the boat a little bit cleaned up, but it's still a disaster in here. Uh, Took it sailing yesterday, had a little incident. My diesel fuel in the up in the V-berth, underneath the V-berth, actually, in the storage compartment under there. We had some great wind yesterday. We were heeled over as far as 40 degrees. Most of the time probably spent at least 30 degrees, and the diesel can leaked. So I had to clean up a mess, and that's a very difficult thing to do in this boat because of where this diesel went. Okay, so I have this little chest of drawers that I installed, drawers out of my brother's Catalina 30 that ended up going to the boneyard. But anyway, I installed those. This is a Catalina 25. Here is usually a sink in some boats. In other boats, it's a tiny, tiny little hanging locker with very little usefulness. So I just installed those here 2 years ago, I think. And then when I was trying to figure out where to put the diesel heater, most folks would have stuffed it way back inside of here somewhere in the, well, you can't even see back there because it's too dark and I've got it full of sails and things like that. But most people would have mounted it back here in the quarter berth. This quarter berth is, I don't know, maybe 7 feet long. It's got tons of space. But in the back corner, way back here, in the back corner of the quarter berth, there's a vent hose that really was getting in the way of where I wanted to install or where I wanted to put the exhaust for the heater. So I couldn't put it there. On the other side, back here, behind this bulkhead, or no, I guess it's kind of a bulkhead, there's a fuel locker that houses my gasoline for my outboard motor. I didn't want to install a heater in the same compartment with a gasoline tank, so that nixed that idea. Other options, people have talked about putting it, down here underneath the settee, and then exhausting out somehow. I don't know if I would have had to have brought the exhaust maybe up and then through the side of the hull here. But when you're sailing and you're heeled over, you could take water in through your exhaust there. Up here at window level is probably safe. Should be safe unless you're capsized. And so you could bring the exhaust all the way up that high, but then the bends that you would have to do and the length of the exhaust coming from, way down here all the way up to probably exit the exhaust over here, maybe exit the intake between the windows here. And it wasn't going to be a clean installation. This side, kind of the same thing. I suppose it would have been possible to maybe mount the heater underneath here, and then mount it on its side with the hoses exiting this way and then coming up again between the window and maybe forward of the window. But I didn't want it in the same exact place where I would be sleeping, and this all here folds down into a queen size bed, so that's where I sleep. So what I ended up doing, here's the V-berth. What I ended up doing was mounting it on top of this dresser that I installed, exiting fresh air, combustion air entering here, exhaust out here. Now, the nice thing about this is when you're on anchor, the wind will be pushing the boat in this direction. So the forward of the boat will always be this way, the aft of the boat will always be that way when you're at anchor, which will prevent exhaust gases from entering the intake. The only way that could happen is if you anchored from the rear, which is not recommended, not a safe idea anyway. So I did have to run some 10 gauge Ancor marine grade wiring to run the battery. I tied that in here. You can see the 10 gauge wire here is spliced in. I left about maybe 6 or 8 inches of the stock wiring. Then I ran the 10 gauge wire behind the heater, up the bulkhead here, all the way across, down, and then behind or underneath the bulkhead. So entering the cabin again, that wiring goes underneath here, and then the battery, the house battery, is under here. It's 200 amp hour lithium phosphate battery. So the additional wiring, I had to drill, use a hole saw. What are we running at? We're at 17 Celsius right now. I don't know, 65 degrees maybe, Fahrenheit. What I did was I ran the control wiring along with it, and then the control wiring comes down. You can see I had to put about an 1.5 inch hole in the wall to feed that plug through. Fuel line goes down between the dresser and the bulkhead leading into the V-berth. It goes all the way down, and then I will pop this little door open, and you can see I took it, had to saw another hole, and took it underneath the V-berth. So the fuel tank is behind this fiberglass here, and then here is the V-berth where people may or may not sleep. I'd show you where the actual fuel can is down here, but it's dark, so you're not going to see that. As far as the vent hose, I took the vent hose, same thing as I did with the fuel line. I took it down between the main bulkhead and the dresser. There's just enough space. There's about 3.5, 4 inches there. And I took it down so it runs behind here, and then right about here I had to drill a hole, or saw a hole, a big 3-inch hole, through the bulkhead, and then run the exit here. So if I lift this up, you'll see where it's at. So there's my hole that I had to saw through the bulkhead, and storage, spare parts heater down there. And that's it. That's my install. The only thing I have left to do is I am going to put a wooden panel to cover that. It'll quiet some of the noise. It's at full tilt right now, so it's pretty loud, but as soon as this thing hits 20 degrees Celsius, it will go down to a very low idle, and you can barely hear it. You'll hear it almost not at all once I get the sound barrier here. I don't care if I cover that window. It's not going to be a big deal for me. Anyway, hope you like it.